Privyet and shit, no, that's not right. Hold on. Privyet and welcome to another episode. That's supposed to be Russian. I don't know whether that came out right. Anyway, hi guys, welcome to another episode. Today we should really be talking about lore. But since we already had a big lore thing happen this week, and there was some news today, I thought, how about we do a bit of a different episode, kind of a mechanics, but mostly more of a newsy type thing, which I've not done before, but I've been hoping to for a while, and this seemed like a good opportunity. So yeah, we're going to be talking about the next beta weekend and all the stuff that's going to be in it, starting on Friday, which should be really, really cool. And yeah, the footage in the background comes from Ultimesk, so thanks very much to them. You can find a link down in the description below if you want to check out their other stuff. And before really we started, I just wanted to say thanks to everyone who really enjoyed the lore summary episode that I put out. I thought it would be a pretty good video and it would do reasonably well, and it really has surpassed those expectations, so I'm really glad you guys like it. I'm glad that it's actually doing what it's supposed to do, in that you can show it to people that literally have no idea about the story and actually they can learn something from it. So yeah, that was really cool. As I say, that is a series that will be continuing on. Really, it's going to take a bit of a different turn though. In about a fortnight the next one will be out, and that's going to be looking at the story of Guild Wars 1. That's really what most of these videos in this series are going to be, summing up the story of Guild Wars 1, of all those campaigns, the expansion, and the 250 years before Guild Wars 2. So the idea is, once you've watched everything, you'll come away knowing more about the world than most Guild Wars 1 players, let alone people that didn't play the game in the first place. And yeah, it's kind of a different style though to what that first video was like, so I'm interested to see what people think of part 2 when that does come. But as I said, that's about a fortnight. Let's not blab on about it. Let's talk about the next beta weekend. So in the description, if you don't want to listen to this from me, you'll find, and I'm not just going to read this blog post out, but a blog post came out, ArenaNet released on June 5th. Was that today? Yeah, today. So they released this blog post today called the Big Beta Weekend Preview, and they talked a little bit about some of the new features and things that would be coming into the beta, and there's some pretty exciting stuff going on. First of all, and we already knew this, but it has been confirmed, you can keep your characters that you had in the previous beta weekend event if you want to play in this one. So if you got just under the level that you needed to be able to play in the Ascalonian Catacombs before, you can jump straight back into the game, have the time to level up to get to the catacombs, and then go and play them. In addition to that, in fact, as we should all be aware at this point, or you might not be aware, dungeons in Guild Wars 2 really come in two flavours. You have one dungeon that can be played through basically twice, if you put it as simply as possible. First time you play through it, you'll have like a story mode with lots of cutscenes and stuff, and it will push the story forward, like one of the stories of the game to do with Destiny's Edge, one of the groups of heroes. So you can play through the dungeon the first time in what's called story mode, and that's a little bit easier, and that's just supposed to tell the story to you and get you used to the dungeon. And then if you return to it, you can kind of play the dungeon again in an explorable mode, which deals with the aftermath of what happened in the story mode. It's far less about cutscenes and stuff, because after a while people will just be skipping them anyway, and that's really, really hard. Tough as nails, but comes with unique rewards, and really this is what a lot of people mistakenly believe that all of Guild Wars 2's PvE endgame is about, but that is certainly a facet of the PvE endgame. Anyway, in the previous beta, explorable mode wasn't available in the Ascalonian Catacombs, but now it is. So before you could play through the story mode, and indeed there have been a lot of videos, and even if you haven't played it, where you can see what that's like. Now the explorable mode's out. This is going to be our first taste of how difficult these things really can be, and this is going to be our first taste and experience of what we think the actual Guild Wars 2 endgame will be like. So it's going to be very exciting to see what happens there. It's level 35 for that, so it's 5 levels higher than actually the story mode requires, but if you can get to it, I would definitely recommend you try it out. I'm certainly going to be rushing trying to get myself there to see what it's like. If you're planning on playing Guild Wars 2 PvE for a long time and never really go to PvP, then this might be something you spend a lot of your time playing. It's like the Guild Wars 2 equivalent of raiding. It's very different to raiding, but it's like the equivalent in one way. So very exciting. A lot of us looking forward to it, and I certainly am as well. That's still the only dungeon that's there. However, they have added new maps, new areas that you can actually go to, and by that I mean really in two different areas. First, for the PvE stuff, we can go to a place called the Gandharan Fields. This we have seen before. It wasn't in the previous beta, the first beta weekend event. We couldn't go there. We could only go to the starter areas of the 3 races. We could go to their places and then the 1 zone above it. So you could get to like level 1 to 30 zones essentially for 3 of the races, and then Lion's Arch as well, which was only accessible through an Asura Gate. However, at conventions and stuff, we have actually seen this other map before, Gandharan Fields, and this is like the middle ground map. This is the map where all of the races go to get through to actually get to Lion's Arch. If you want now in the beta, this means you can go to Lion's Arch, the new city that was released, obviously, that we saw that first time last beta weekend event. Now you can actually walk there without having to teleport through the Asura Gate, which is really cool. So that place is in there, all the events and stuff are going to be there too, so plenty more to see. If you were one of these people that literally just powered your way through all of the maps and everything, and I have seen people saying that and complaining, saying, oh, I managed to complete all of the hearts straight away. I finished all the hearts really, really quickly, and I was disappointed there wasn't more PvE stuff in the beta. Well, hey, now you've got another map you can go to. You'll probably finish it just as quick as you finish the other ones, but it is something more and something different to do, and also something tailored more for those higher level players, which I think is probably necessary, considering now you can continue on with a character that's not necessarily at level 1 from the off. You know, you can be starting at level 20. You're going to get to a higher level, which is really quite cool. I mentioned there are new maps though, because they've refined and changed World vs World quite significantly. They've added a lot more to do in World vs World by adding things like jumping puzzles, dynamic events, proper ones like you'd expect in PvE, not just, you know, escorting supply caravans, but proper dynamic events, skill challenges, jumping puzzles. They're all there now in World vs World, which is going to be quite good. I'm actually quite excited about that, because particularly with World vs World, it certainly seems like it's one of those things where unless you were in the first beta with a big group of people, it didn't feel like there was enough for you to do around there. I mean, you would at least need a group of some size if you wanted to attack certain places or have some kind of an impact. And the other main problem with that, I'd say, is that you can only spend so long in a massive Zerg in World vs World before it gets a little bit boring, I've got to say, especially with the way it's set up at the moment with the gates, and you're just hammering on the gates. You look at the World vs World footage that came out of that first beta weekend, a good 90% of it is just people attacking gates, and once you've seen someone attack one gate, you've kind of seen them attack them all, and I feel like the gameplay would get kind of boring there as well. So it's nice to see that they've been continuing to add new things into World vs World. Not just this though, they have added like an underground map, like a big dungeon type thing in the central area underground that is all part of the same map, but you just kind of go underground. There's this huge place down there. Sounds really, really cool, that, and apparently, you know, you will go in there, you will be going around the corridors and find other people of other teams that might end up starting attacking you. It sounds really cool. And they've hinted at something called the Dark Room as well, which they haven't said very much about, but they say that we'll have to see or not to believe, which sounds really, really cool. So I'm liking what's going on with World vs World. I'm hoping we get some more interesting stuff coming out of it. I don't know how much I'm going to be playing World vs World, to be perfectly honest, this next beta weekend, but for those of you really interested in it, and I know that there are a lot of people that just want to play Guild Wars 2 for World vs World, very, very exciting, and it sounds really cool. So they've done that as well. I was talking about Lion's Arch earlier. One tiny little thing that they've done there, I suppose, is there's a new mechanic they've announced for the game called the Mystic Forge. You could see this in the beta, you could see it there in Lion's Arch, but you just couldn't do very much with it. I believe actually you could walk over to it and you'd see like an interact button come, but if you pressed it, nothing would happen. Well, this is obviously a feature they've been working on for a while, and it's this giant magical entity thing in the middle of Lion's Arch, which obviously is going to be quite a populated capital. It would be like the main place of activity, I'm guessing, for Guild Wars 2 at its launch. And in there, you can just toss your trash items, you can just throw them all in there, and you'll get a random chance to get something back. So if you get some equipment that you don't need, if you get something else that you don't care about, or you've got loads of trophies that you don't need for any reason, you can throw them in there rather than selling them to a vendor and getting gold and trying your luck. And that sounds very interesting. They could add all kinds of rare and awesome items in there with very low chances. That makes it feel like a bit of a lottery, a little bit exciting. Sounds really cool. It reminds me a little bit of a game I was playing recently called Dungeons of Dreadmore, which had a very similar feature where you could put all your trash stuff basically in this box and then throw it into a shrine and you might get something back. Sounds really, really cool, and I'm interested to... I'm going to be trying my luck, definitely. I found like I had so much gold in the Guild Wars 2 beta, mostly due to the fact I didn't want to spend the money that much, that I don't care that much about selling stuff to vendors. I'll probably just be throwing it in here and trying my luck and seeing what I get. So that's really cool. They added a little bit of lore as well to do with that. Apparently some Jinn called Zamoros, who is from Elona, as all Jinn so far that we've met in the Guild Wars universe are really from, which sounds very interesting as well. So, well, that's with the exception of some Jinn that were in the Ironforgemen. But anyway, so there a little bit of extra lore there, but they really didn't say very much. It's just a cool feature that's now in the game, and is nice to hear about. Going back to PvP, they've revamped the way the reward system works for competitive PvP. There's now 2 different currencies that you get from competitive PvP, glory and rank. Glory is like gold, PvP gold, basically. It's just a currency that you can spend to unlock stuff, and rank is like a measurement of how good you've been doing in PvE, how skillful you are. As it goes up, then presumably you could be matched with people of a similar rank, and then, you know, you'd have even fair games, which sounds really cool. Obviously something that's been in a lot of FPSs and stuff, and if they want to be competitive, definitely needed. So sounds cool. I wouldn't be surprised if we had more refinements though to that kind of stuff for PvP as time goes on. They've obviously worked on a lot of stuff, so it's really cool to see that they've been improving on it so much more. And automated tournaments as well. These were a feature that were in Guild Wars 1, and they are certainly back for Guild Wars 2. Each tournament pits 8 teams of 5 players against each other. It's elimination basically, and you get rewarded with tournament chests if you manage to work your way up through those tournaments, which sounds really cool. So that's what's going on with the competitive PvP. I'm hoping to do a lot of competitive PvP this beta. What I think might be nice for Guild Wars 2 Daily to mix things up a bit and change things a bit for us. I'd quite like to, in the beta, do a load of PvP, and maybe I could start talking about my PvP experiences, and like every 3rd day we could have a PvP match that we get to watch, and we'll see who wins. I would like to try my hand at some point of casting PvP stuff. It depends how Guild Wars 2 PvP pans out in the end though, but hey, I'd like to try my hand at it during the beta. I guess why not? So you might actually end up seeing that, and I could talk a bit more about that as we get to it. Apparently combat's been refined slightly. John Peters has been at it again. He says that there's been more improvements to making the game more visceral, and they have improved what he likes to call the sense of hitting something, which is quite funny because I spent one of the recent Guild Wars 2 dailies complaining about how all of the enemies flash every time you hit them, and it's obviously to try and give it a sense that you've hit them. And honestly, I know that's just a visual thing, and he's probably talking more mechanics when he's talking about this, but I wouldn't like to see if those were even more bright. I'll be keeping my eye out for that. So that's something. Overflow servers, big problem with the original beta. I suffered from it greatly, and many people did. They had this overflow system in there. It was very bare bones. It wasn't very good, and what it basically meant was if you had a group of friends that you wanted to play with in PvE, unless you want a really low populated server at a specific time of the day, you were pretty much screwed in a lot of the earlier zones because there were too many people there. You'd have no way of knowing what overflow server someone was in, and you'd have no way of directly warping into separate overflow servers. You only had a vague way of getting into the original instance that wasn't an overflow. It was just a massive pain for a lot of people. They heard it. They probably already knew it was a problem before even going into the beta, to be fair. They've had time to fix it. Now you will be able to see in your party window what overflow server everyone is in, and you'll also have a handy little button so you can click it and you will be teleported straight to them. So thank God for that. That should all be fixed now, and we shouldn't have any problems playing with each other. So I mean I'm not too disappointed though. In the first beta weekend, a lot of people were complaining about that a lot. I wasn't too disappointed because that is precisely the kind of issue that I would expect a beta to have. Honestly, if I think about beta problems, stuff to do with servers, I was kind of expecting something like that anyway. But anyway, it's fixed now, thank God, for beta weekend event 2. So if that annoyed you for the first one, that's also fixed. Very quickly, they've had some extra UI improvement, like improving the minimap. It's now square and various other things. There's a quote that says little adjustments have been made, like making the map resizable or wrapping the dodge meter around the top of the health bubble. May not seem like a big deal at first, but over the course of many hours spent playing a game, you start to appreciate a well-designed interface. I can agree with that. I did feel like the interface was lacking a little bit every now and then. There's actually screenshots on this blog, by the way, if you want to click the description and have a look at it, and you'll see like the new interface. It looks cool. It's a big map. Obviously you can resize it, which is good, but they decided to go with that. Just tiny little tweaks and stuff to the interface, I suppose. There's improved chat once again, and key binding. That was something a lot of people have asked about, and Arena even mentioned that here in this blog post. They say, oh, this was one of our most requested features. It certainly was. So now if you want, you can actually have modifier keys. You can have the left half of your skill bar bound to numbers 1 to 5, and then you can have the right half bound to numbers 1 to 5, but while you're holding left control if you wish. You can do stuff like that. You can set modifiers. Really cool. Really, Guild Wars 2 has less of a need for it than other MMOs, certainly because it's using this limited skill bar system, but it is a feature people expect from MMOs, and people will get use out of it regardless. So yeah, it's good that they've finally gone off and put that in there. Once again, that's just ArenaNet listening to what people have been asking for, and that's the purpose of a beta anyway, so thank God they're doing that. The gem store apparently has had some revamps. They've added some weird lore about that, actually. Apparently there's these people called the Black Lion Trading Company who somehow own the gem store. We're going to be seeing new stuff in the gem store. One example they give is the Box of Fun, which spawns a chest that applies random crazy effects to everyone who touches it. Obviously this is just going to be a PvE thing. Whether it will happen in dungeons and stuff, people are going to be scrutinizing this really closely to see whether it throws things out of balance. Obviously we don't know what the effects are yet, so I'm not going to comment on it either way, but we will have a lot of people looking looking at that. They've added a lot more into the gem store, and people are going to be looking for those things that give people in-game advantages and stuff, and ready to complain. So we'll have to see what ArenaNet have done. We're going to get a much better look at that. And really, last of all, there are tiers for skills. I've left this for last because I'm going to cop out and not comment on it. This is something a lot of people have been discussing. Now, if you want to unlock skills, they are split into certain tiers, so you need to unlock a certain amount of skills from one tier, like you need to get all the skills on the first tier, and then that will unlock the next one, and then you can get the skills that are available there, and then that will unlock the next one, and you can get the ones there. So there's a sense of progression, more of a progression that's been added. This was already in place in the game in a very minor way already, because different skills cost different amounts of skill points originally, so some people are saying, well, what's the point of it? It doesn't matter, that kind of progression is already there. But you do have less choice now with the game, but there is a much stronger progression and linearity and things to be working towards, and a greater sense of achievement from working your way through this past level 30, which I think is important. I've mentioned this before. I think that after level 13 you get that elite skill, there is less character progression there, and maybe this skill tier system is there to try and subsidize that and actually make you feel like you are still progressing and have stuff to go for after that point. I like the idea. I've always said that Guild Wars 2 isn't supposed to be a sandbox, and I don't like the way the community reacts every time there's something that seems to limit them in the slightest way, and they cry that they want more freedom. I don't agree with that. I think that taking away certain freedoms from the player can add a lot more, and I'm kind of excited about skill tiers right now, but obviously I've not played it, and I don't want to, sit exactly on one side of the fence just yet until I've got to experience it myself. But that's something new that they're doing. You have to check that out when you get in the game, and that's pretty much it. That's what there was coming our way, coming from Friday through to Sunday, the second beta weekend event. I'm happy that they decided to put it off and add all this new stuff in and do all these refinements before having the next beta weekend event, rather than trying to force it last month, because some people would come under the expectation they were going to have one beta a month, and they said no to that, and some people complained, but I'm glad they put it off. They've always had the when it's ready mentality, and this is just them showing us that they're going to stick with it. And hey, I think it's been well worth the wait. So if we can expect this kind of change between every single beta weekend event, then just imagine what the game will be like when it actually finally launches. And any little problems you might already have, just judging from the scale of things that they've changed already, might not be an issue a couple of months down the line. So anyway, yeah, starting on Friday, guys, till Sunday, that's what to expect in the next beta weekend event. I'll keep you posted with anything new that comes out, and thanks very much for watching Guild Wars 2 Daily. Let me know what you thought about this kind of thing. It wasn't Q&A today, obviously, but hey, we'll see how it goes. Anyway, yeah, I hope to see you guys in the beta. I will see you tomorrow as well for lore, probably tomorrow, and thanks very much, guys. Once again, I will see you next time. See you later.